Welcome back to the Daily Mastermind. George Wright III here with your daily dose of inspiration, motivation, and education. I want to talk to you today about how to manage your mind. You know that tool inside your head that keeps getting the better of you? Today we're going to talk about how to manage your mind. So I want to talk to you about this because our thoughts, and I know each of us is spending more and more time inside our heads right now because, with all this limited interaction we've had due to COVID-19 or maybe being a little bit more closed in or virtual in your business, I want to get inside this idea of how to manage your thoughts and your mind. And I want to use one of my favorite books. It's a favorite book of mine that I reference from time to time, and it's called Managing Thought by Mary Lore. Mary Lore. And the title is Think Differently. This is kind of the subtitle there. It's Think Differently, Think Powerfully, and Achieve New Levels of Success. But this idea of managing thought by Mary Lore. Now, this book is definitely, it's going to definitely help you accomplish those goals of thinking differently and thinking powerfully. I also agree with the author. They kind of say this book and this concept I want to talk about today is going to help you to rethink your path to success, refocus your goals and priorities, reframe your negative thoughts, reignite your creativity, revitalize your energy, restore your sense of purpose, and reclaim your peace of mind. This book talks about a process for managing your thoughts, but the first 5 to 6 chapters, which I generally will reread over and over on occasion, they really help you to set up the argument that you are not your mind. Now, we've talked about this before on the Daily Mastermind, and it's frankly one of the most listened to episodes or topics that I talk about. But I believe this is attributed to the fact that, we all get stuck inside our heads. That's why so many people want help with this topic. And I really want to talk today about managing your thoughts because I'm just as concerned and aware that most of us don't manage our thoughts. In other words, we're not actively managing our thoughts, and so our lives are still being affected, even if we're not being proactive about it. Managing your thought is not just a topic for people focused on personal development. I believe every single person should be consciously working on their thoughts because everyone should want to live a life that's happier and more fulfilled. So let's talk about this and these key ideas that are in the book. The first thought is that now is the only reality that exists. Now is the only reality that exists. And I love this thought because to influence your life, you've got to be present. You've got to be in the now. The Buddha said, "We are what we think. All that we are arises from our thoughts. And with our thoughts, we remake the world. And we remake it in the present." And there are 3 keys to really successfully managing our thoughts. And these are the things I want you to think about. Number 1, you've got to have more self-awareness. Number 2, you have to have more self-mastery. So being aware, but mastering self. And third, being on purpose. When you're on purpose, you're going to have a much, much more productive, less of a struggle time in creating your life. And we've talked, and we've been taught really kind of throughout our lives, if you've been studying personal development, that actions drive our results. But this is really not entirely true. I've mentioned this several times before, but our thoughts and beliefs are actually what affect our thoughts, right? And this is why our results are truly driven by our thoughts and beliefs, because those are what drive our actions, right? You've heard me say that before. Your thoughts and beliefs create your actions, which then create your results. I hope that makes sense. And I love this idea that when we are inspired is when we truly achieve results. Because inspiration is what drives your thoughts and beliefs. The happiness, thankfulness, vision, purpose, and wonder of possibility is what really creates creativity and results in your life. And that's being inspired. So the question we really need to ask ourselves is whether we're driving our thoughts, whether we're constantly being inspired, or are we plagued with self-doubt, fear, and worry? Are we reactive on autopilot, or are we proactive with our thoughts? Eckhart Tolle said, "Thinking has become a disease. It's not so much that you're using your mind wrong. You actually don't use it at all. It uses you. That is the disease. You believe that you are in control of your mind, and you're not. We need to understand and acknowledge that we are not our minds. Our minds or our brains are tools that observe, sense, store, and retrieve information. And the key way of using this tool is to be aware of what it's doing, what our minds and the awareness of that, it's going to empower us. And that is the key. So when we stop to become aware, like I mentioned before, what we do just by being aware is we shift our minds from that hypothalamus to the frontal cortex of our brain, that CEO center of our mind that takes over and starts to create and manufacture solutions. So I recommend practice, no matter what, just noticing your thoughts. Many mindfulness practices, they do that. Just notice what your thoughts are. Notice what you're thinking about. Notice where your mind's going. Because the more aware you are, the more empowered you're going to be. And another key point to understand is that when we calm our minds, we're far more productive. We all know that the average daily thoughts are like 60 to 100,000 thoughts a day, I think they say it is. And creativity literally goes out the freaking window when you're so overwhelmed and overloaded with thoughts. And that's why it's so difficult for you to freaking get things done, is that you're forcing yourself to come up with solutions when you're completely stressed out. And trust me when I say I notice and experience this all the time. I'm the same way. The biggest solution you have when this happens is to literally stop what you're doing and take a break, go for a walk, do some exercise, meditate, slow your mind down. I know from experience that this is hard to do in the moment, but when you're aware of your thoughts, you will recognize when this is happening and you'll be able to act on it. So try it and see how much more productive you can be when you give your mind a break and create a calm, centered, and creative mind. Another thing I like to remind myself is that we are not our feelings. Now, this is a little bit of a variation. Our minds and our feelings are just reflections of what's going on in our world. But, and I emphasize but, our feelings are an incredible tool to help us manage our minds. They're great indicators to whether or not we're on purpose, quote unquote. You know, I did that because we're doing audio here, but in a video you'd see when you're on purpose and you're moving in the right direction, your feelings are aligned. And when our thoughts trigger negative or, difficult emotions, it's a great indicator that we are not on purpose. And, maybe we need to realign to the best versions of ourselves, and maybe we're not moving in the direction that we really believe we should be moving. And when this happens, stop. Become aware of your emotions. Understand that they're there helping you to identify when you're not going in the right direction. And when you take a step back and analyze your emotions, it's a powerful, powerful way to take control of situations rather than let them get the best of you. And I do believe we need to allow emotions to take course, right? You've got to be in the emotion for sure. But it's also true that you can deal with them much better when you're not in them and being reactive and controlled by your emotions, which we all have been there. We've all been there, right? Now, just the reverse can be true with powerful positive emotions. Positive, powerful thoughts and emotions can be real catalysts for inspiration and creativity. That's why we always talk about positive affirmations or declarations. This is a way to turn weak thoughts and emotions into powerful, productive thoughts and emotions. Things like love, gratitude, forgiveness, they're far more powerful than anger, resentment, and blame. So saying things like, I am successful is far more powerful than I want to be successful. You've got to be in the present moment and believe. Saying I should be is not as powerful as saying I choose to be. Does that make sense? So be aware of what your words are. Be aware of how you're using them. Be aware of your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and having that awareness, it'll empower you to create massive change and results in your life. Now, I don't have time to cover all of what I really love about in this book, but there's one other example I'd really like to highlight. The author refers to the process of managing your thoughts like that of pruning a tree. In order to truly grow a strong tree, you've got to start with purpose. You've got to prune the tree and then cultivate it daily. And T. Harv Eker also talks about this concept when he says the roots create the fruits. In other words, you can't just let things happen. You need to consciously and specifically decide what you want, cultivate it, care for it, and nurture it in your thoughts. And that's a real powerful concept. So I want to encourage you to pick up a copy of the book if you can, and I'll do my best to, potentially get Mary Laura on as an interview, and maybe we can get into more details on the actual processes at future episodes. but she covers a lot of topics in depth, and I think it'll help you to go through the process of managing your thoughts, like, for example, identifying thoughts that waste time and energy and money, identify destructive and diseased thoughts. How do you shape your thoughts? How do you ask powerful questions? What kind of daily cultivation can you do? How can you manage your energy and spirit? And, so many other ideas. But ultimately, there's a lot of ideas, stories, studies, and descriptions that I think can help you in this book. And so, I'd encourage you to get a copy of it. And I would encourage you to start to empower yourself by learning to stop and then become aware of your thoughts. Practice this. Being aware of your thoughts will create self-mastery. Watch what happens when you do this. Watch what happens when you start monitoring and looking at your thoughts. My goal is to help create more awareness for you in your life, and I hope this discussion has given you a little bit of that. But remember, it's never too late to start living the life that you are meant to live. So I want you to let me know what you're struggling with. Hit me up on the Daily Mastermind on Facebook or Instagram. DM me, let me know what you're struggling with, and let's see what we can do to help you stay focused and in the best version of yourself. Do me a favor, refer, share, mention this podcast. Let people know what we have here. We want to make a difference in people's lives, and you're helping us to do that. We really do appreciate you. Being part of the Daily Mastermind is something that I think is going to help to empower your life, and I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you spending time with me. Once again, my name is George Wright III. I'm your host, and this has been the Daily Mastermind. Have an amazing day.